So welcome everyone. I'm Carolyn Eswine. I'm the co-chair of the Urban Planning Department at UW-Milwaukee. We're in the School of Architecture and Urban Planning. Really excited to have you join us today. I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge in Milwaukee that we are on traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homeland along the southwest shores of Michigamme, North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnic rivers meet. And the Ho-Chunk, Menominee, and Oneida and Mohican nations remain present. So we encourage you to.
Yeah, I mean, it pops up sometimes.
Wow.
81 degrees.
Everyone was muted. I'm not sure how that actually happened. So excited to have you join us. As I mentioned, we are kicking off our fall series. We have 4 really inspiring topics for you. The next one, October 8th, will be placemaking in action. We're going to focus on Wisconsin's Vibrant Communities Grant and the impacts that some communities are experiencing from those projects. November 12th, we will do marketplaces from food access and health to planning strategies to implement different market types through your planning or your zoning codes. We'll have a national and local perspective for that presentation, and we'll close out the semester on December 3rd with public transit collaboration and the priorities between the city and county of Milwaukee and some of their really successful projects that they're doing. So today's topic is regional transit and workforce rideshare. We're going to be looking at Milwaukee and the Central Ohio Transit Authority based out of Columbus. I'm really excited to be joined by Dave Steele. He's the Executive Director of Mobilize, and then Devani Puranik, Director of Development Programs for the Central Ohio Transit Authority. And they're going to share some lessons learned and how innovative transit strategies can strengthen both your regional connections and access to jobs. I ask you to put your comments into the chat. We will have time at the end for your questions and a bit of a discussion. And I really am excited to pass it over to Dave. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, and delighted to be here today. Happy to see a lot of familiar names here on the attendee list. Can't wait to see everybody in person at a future event, and also just really happy to welcome Devani Puranik from COTA, Central Ohio Transportation Authority. Columbus was one of the inspirations for a lot of the work that Mobilize has done, and fastest growing city in the Midwest. So I think we all have something to learn from our friends in Columbus. So thanks for being here, Devyani. So Mobilize, we are a nonprofit organization. We actually started going back to 1992 as a transit advocacy organization, but as often happens, nonprofits kind of have different iterations, and the basic structure exists, but we fill that with new missions and new ideas over the years. So the latest iteration of Mobilize came about in 2015 when we organized the Regional Transit Leadership Council. And this group was made up of civic and business leaders, and I'll advance.
Dave, I'm going to you are not sharing your screen right now like you were before. So if you're meaning to be sharing right now, which I'm expecting.
There we go. Excellent. Okay, does that work? Very good. All right, thank you.
Now. Sure.
No. Okay. So yeah, like I said, we really got off the ground here in 2015, mid 2000s, and I always say that if you're a transit advocate in anywhere in the United States, it requires a lot of patience, tenacity. You don't get into public transit advocacy if you like winning a lot or easy wins, because it is extremely difficult, and you're going to have a lot of losses on your column, more than wins, at least at first. But a lot had happened around regional transit. There had been some rail projects that had been scuttled in the 2000s, but a core group of people that really believed in transit and its potential in Milwaukee had come together and formed this Regional Transit Leadership Council. And then that became the backbone of what is now Mobilize. So we changed the name in 2021, just to update the brand a bit. But what we do really is advocacy. That's why we exist. We have an advocacy agenda. Spend time here in our state capital. You can see our state capital in Madison there in the dead of winter. And that's not a metaphor for anything, in terms of how hard it is to advocate for transit out there. But, our goal is to build nonpartisan regional support for, transit. So when I took this position on back in 2018, I had come from K-12 education and ironically spent a lot more time driving than I ever had before because I was going all over the region to, meet with people in the suburbs and in the city. I've always been a transit advocate. I ride the bus daily. So I'm happy to, kind of get back to that in this role. But, as we were going around the region and, convening for things like dedicated funding for transit and safe streets, I noticed a major disconnect in kind of the conversation because, you have your kind of urbanist crowd or your Milwaukee base, and they're kind of saying this, and then you have the suburbs and they're kind of saying that, and near the twain shall meet. But what we saw was really a need for something different to really address those regional concerns, and that's what led to eventually the launch of FlexRide Milwaukee in 2022. So here's another one of our convenings. It's all regional. That's the mayor of West Allis there holding the microphone. So we aim to have that regional to always keep it regional in that regional conversation. Okay, so here's one of these super pretentious email signatures. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past and present are certain to miss the future. Of course, John F. Kennedy said that. I won't do my impersonation of the accent, when he said that. I'll save that for later if I ever meet up with, some of you guys later. But, I think we see these types of quotes and, it's supposed to be inspirational and all of that. And, really what JFK was talking about here was ending the Cold War and sending people to the moon. Like that's pretty dramatic stuff. But it really says nothing about how you actually get to a point of change and, what precipitates that and how does it actually happen? But, when it comes to transit, as we were, really unpacking as a group, the group of advocates that came together in the mid-teens, there were a number of trends that were, abundantly evident. And, unfortunately, we see here just a continued ridership decline in the Milwaukee County transit system. Now, this is a friendly crowd, so I'm comfortable sharing this graph. But let's be honest, this graph and the data behind it is used, by those that oppose transit. So you see, there you go. No one's riding it, so therefore it should be, defunded. But I think as we're talking amongst ourselves as advocates, why is this? So, I look at how there's a third of the number of rides given in 2024 as there were way back in 2001. And it's not because the bus system in Milwaukee isn't good. In fact, it's award winning. It has, some of the best reliability and on-time performance. As I mentioned, I ride it on the daily. And, if it doesn't quite compute that a transit system that is so solid and really the third highest transit ridership in the Midwest, would see these kinds of declines. So what's going on here? And we look at another graph, and that's the number of vehicle miles traveled in the United States. And this is national, and this goes all the way back to 1971. But we just continue to drive more and more and more and more. And we did have that dip there during the COVID time, but that just went down to 2003 or 2001 levels of driving, which then they themselves had been just like this massive increase. And, I think if we all think about it in our own lives here, the amount of driving that many of us, even those of us that live in the city and do, ride transit and bike and stuff, just the amount of driving has just, increased. And, we're all planners on this call, right? And we understand that what's really driving all of this is land use. And I use an example from my own experience, and that's the bus route that I grew up taking as a kid on the south side of Milwaukee, Route 19. That was my lifeline to high school, jobs, everything. And back in those days, my entire life oriented north towards the city. That kind of orangish line there is College Avenue. That's where the Route 19 used to terminate. Now it goes all the way down to Drexel Town Square. So back in the 90s, it didn't go down to Oak Creek because, quite frankly, there was really no occasion to go there unless you were commuting to a dairy farm. You really had no occasion to go there. Now that's where things are. That's where Drexel Town Square is, the retail development, the office parks. That's where it increasingly is, and these are land use decisions. So, we talk about a spiral or a death spiral for MCTS or transit in the United States in general. And I think, honestly, it's been a spiral for the last 25 years because they keep building things further and further out. They don't give additional funding to transit agencies to serve those far out areas. And then as a result, the reliability goes down, the frequency goes down, and then fewer people ride it. And I spend a lot of time talking with elected leaders and just non-transit people all over the region. And it continues to strike me that transit isn't even part of people's conversations. Like I'm in places around workforce development and conversations around economic development and community development in the city. And people will say, yeah, we have a lot of folks out of work and we need to get them to good jobs. Therefore, we have to give them driver's licenses. We have to, make it easier to buy cars because that's what they need. Very few people go to transit as a solution. And I think that really just kind of speaks to the challenges that we have to, within that context, try to meet people, where they are. So this is a huge challenge in Milwaukee. It's exacerbated by the fact that we have no regional transit authority. We're one of the largest metros in the United States that does not have a regional transit authority. It's not unusual, though, to have car-oriented land use patterns. But in Milwaukee, it's a huge racial equity issue. The blue areas there are where the transit are fixed route transit areas, and the red there shows you the concentrations of the jobs. So it's pretty apparent. So, our group of leaders that were, discussing how we, find new ways to fund transit and get people, where they need to be, included a lot of players. And the story of FlexRide really is one of the stars aligning, the right people in the right place at the right time. Top of that list, UW-Milwaukee School of Architecture and Urban Planning. Part of our conversations from the jump, able to apply for and get and receive significant funding from the National Science Foundation to actually design an entirely new kind of workforce transportation service. Sewer PAC, Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, again, at the table when these were just ideas, able to then actually stand up relatively quickly an actual service. And then, the list goes on. Waukesha County Business Alliance, part of these conversations from the beginning. Employ Milwaukee, Workforce Development Organization in Milwaukee, community development groups. Very few of us were, and Milwaukee County and Waukesha County DOTs. Yeah, we were partly transit people and transportation, but a lot of us were not part of that. We just wanted to find ways to address that mismatch issue. Now, what drove the conversation for the suburban folks was we need workers. And what drove the conversations for the city folks is we have a lot of people that are, seeking employment. And I guess my thing is, hey, it's 10 miles. I think we should be able to figure this out. But unfortunately, fixed route transit, I feel like is in this catch-22 where You know, you go talk to people in the state capitol, especially those on the more the Republican side of the aisle, and it's like, oh, no one's riding transit, the ridership's going down, so therefore we're not going to give it the funding. But then when you do that, you're not able to serve the places where the people are trying to get to, which is these red areas on the map, and then it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So in a lot of ways, FlexRide came out of a way to kind of address that paradox, at least for the here and now, you know, for the folks looking for opportunities. So the development of our service, as I advance the slide here, like I said, we started the council in 15, and then UW-Milwaukee back in 2020, the summer of 2020, applied for and then secured a planning grant, and then the next year got an implementation grant by the National Science Foundation. And that allowed FlexRide, it was a golden opportunity for what became FlexRide to really be rooted in the experience of transit riders. You know, because the research team, Dr. Bob Schneider, Ivy Hu from UW-Milwaukee, was able to, you know, really learn from the transit riders themselves, including those that had traveled a long distance out of the suburbs, what they would want to see in a type of transit service. And when they received the implementation grant, then SewerPAC, Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, in a very short period of time, turned that idea on paper into reality by partnering with a company called Via Transportation Incorporated, which operates all of the vehicles and you know, the software and stuff for FlexRide. But again, the stars aligning, everything coming together, right people in the right place at the right time. I think it shows you how it takes creativity and luck. When you don't have regional transit authorities or dedicated funding for transit, things like this take luck and creativity. And I don't know. I think for something as important as this, we should be able to rely less on luck and creativity, and a lot of hard work. I don't want to take that away too, but yeah. So then in June of 22, Mobilize was able to secure funding through the state of Wisconsin, first a $4.2 million grant. And then that followed then another 2 or 3 million from 1.3 from Milwaukee County, and then an additional $1 million from Waukesha County, which really allowed us to add new zones and transition FlexRide from a more of a pilot, you know, bootstrap startup to what it is now, which is you know, something with a bit more staying power for our riders. This is when we launched our service. And, you know, we have UWM there and Employ Milwaukee. That's Kevin Muse from SewerPAC cutting the ribbon. I'm standing between our mayor and our county executive. And on the far left there, we have Allison Bustler from Waukesha County. So, you know, it's always good to cut a ribbon. I was surprised at how many media showed up. There was a lot of TV cameras there. And we had like 5 riders. It was definitely a new idea. And you know, $1 million to make it happen within a time frame from National Science Foundation. So those 5 riders, you know, turned into 10, turned into 100. And since 2022, since we launched this, we've given 134,000 rides to about 5,000 Milwaukeeans. So when I'm communicating that out in the community to funders and people in community groups and workforce, those are eye-popping numbers. Oh my goodness. But I'm always quick to say, you know, Milwaukee County Transit System gives tens of millions of rides per year. You know, so that's one of my main takeaways for something like FlexRide is it's got to be really, really focused on a specific geography and a specific use case. You know, just given the dollars that we have to work with here. So the interest in last mile solutions, you know, has been studied and looked at. The Wisconsin Policy Forum, formerly Public Policy Forum, their 2018 study recommended looking at more innovative rideshare kind of on-demand services for those far out places. Far out by Milwaukee standards. So we're, talking Menominee Falls, New Berlin, places that under the current, model of fixed route, would take sometimes very long bus rides and long walks to serve. But what really necessitates this is, half the jobs, and this is back in 2011, so I'm sure it's his most recent real study about this. I'm sure it's way higher now, but back then, 50% of jobs in the Milwaukee Metro were outside of a 90-minute ride on transit. 75% of the job sites in Waukesha County inaccessible by transit. And this is especially true for those, jobs that offer good entry level wages, things like manufacturing, warehousing, healthcare. Once upon a time, they were all in Milwaukee and in the city of Milwaukee. And increasingly, they're further and further out. And again, that land use, those land use decisions then impact, the social realities of folks, seeking employment. So, what is FlexRide Milwaukee? So, it's micro transit is kind of the word du jour. It seems to be the word that we've all sort of fallen on here. As I'm explaining it to people that are just looking to ride it or maybe support us, it's like an Uber. Usually that's your way in and how you explain it, because everybody understands what an Uber is. You call it when you need it, and it operates like a minivan. But sometimes I'll say it's like if Uber and the bus, had a baby, this would be what you would get, right? It's like an Uber. It comes where you are. It's on demand. But like a bus, they are shared. So anywhere between 40 and 60%, given the month, of our rides are shared. And, it's not exactly door to door, it's more like curb to curb. So, I'm going to ask you to walk to the corner near your house. We'll pick you up there, like a virtual stop. And all of that is how we build in the cost efficiencies. Because if the government gave us $5 million and said, everybody that wants an Uber can get one throughout the entire city of Milwaukee, that $5 million is not going to last very long. And that's the balance here of around planning and implementing things like this, is that, your average person, would love to have it. If somebody came to you and said, hey, you could have an Uber ride for $3 and, anywhere you want to go, most people are going to take you up on that offer. So, and how you plan and implement these things to, focus the traffic and focus the demand to make it more cost effective, and ways to add in those aggregations of, make it a little bit more like a bus, a little bit less like an Uber. And what we've found is that our riders, our FlexRide Milwaukee riders are a smart, savvy group of people. They're used to getting around a pretty tough city, on a daily basis without their own cars. And they know the deal. They learn the ropes of how to kind of work with our service the same way you sort of learn the ropes when you're a regular bus rider. You kind of know how the system works, and after a couple of weeks, you got the hang of it. So we didn't really see that much of a learning curve. I think in some ways, maybe Uber and Lyft kind of paved the way for this sort of thing, where people were comfortable with that idea, understood how to, kind of work within that. And there's a lot of word of mouth and kind of peer-to-peer coaching that goes on too. People that learn about the service, they tell their work buddies about it. And then, oh, here's how you do it. Here's how to call for the ride and things like that. So I think that has a lot to do with the ease of use. And it's, we've gotten a lot of workforce development money, and of course they want to see the impact on job connections and things like that. But it is, funded by FTA dollars through Waukesha County now. So legally it is public transit. That means accessibility. Anyone can download the app. Anyone can ride. We do have 2 wheelchair accessible vehicles in the fleet. It is there for everyone. And we have a 1-800 number for folks that don't have smartphones, but it's very underused. At this point, at least among our Flex riders, it's almost universal smartphone usage. So, like I said, not going to repeat myself, but you know, we're designed to be a workforce transportation service. So, you know, we serve those suburban job locations. We have, you know, this is just kind of a screenshot here from our app, and I'm sure Debiani has something very similar, since they also work with Via there at COTA. But yeah, so essentially, if you're in that one of those city of Milwaukee zones, you can call for it just like an Uber, and then we'll come scoop you up anywhere within that zone, and then drop you off in one of our suburban zones. So we have 3 service areas. The original one, which was designed by the team at UW-Milwaukee and Sewer Pack, covers a huge swath of the north side of the city of Milwaukee, and then almost entirety of Menominee Falls and Butler. So then when Mobilize took over and you know launched FlexRide 2.0, we launched the south side and the west side service. In order to make our money last a bit longer, we decided to make them much more focused in terms of the drop-off locations. So these maps they're not to scale, but so you can't really see just how much smaller those new zones are, New Berlin and Oak Creek and Franklin. But that was by design so that, you know, we would be able to stretch our dollars further. And also, you know, in New Berlin and in the south suburbs of Milwaukee, those business parks are pretty concentrated in certain areas. Now, by design, we run where the Milwaukee County Transit System does not run. Sometimes to the consternation of our riders. We'll get messages on our contact form on our website. Why don't you serve, you know, Amazon, or, you know, why don't you serve the FedEx and Cudahy or whatnot? And the answer is clear, because those are served by Milwaukee County Transit System. Our goal is to play in a separate sandbox, and we don't want to take riders away from MCTS. If anything, we want to bring more riders to MCTS. And there is evidence that, you know, at the very least, our Flex riders are also bus riders. I can't say with any certainty data-wise that we're bringing new riders into MCTS, but we know that quite a few of our riders are taking MCTS buses into those pickup zones. And we know that by, you know, based on, you know, our remix kind of pickup data. And, you know, that sort of synergy with the existing fixed route MCTS is extremely important. And, you know, we're a nonprofit organization operating this independently of Milwaukee County Transit System. But as we move to the future, and especially learn from what they're doing in Columbus and some of our other peer cities around the United States, or around the Midwest especially, to me, it's inevitable that there's going to be, if not a full merging or inclusion of it within that MCTS, which I think would be phenomenal for FlexRide and our riders. If not that, then at least more of that coordination, so that you know, more of our riders are taking MCTS buses, and that then is more cost effective for us, quite frankly. Because if I can have you on an MCTS bus for the first 2 miles of your journey, and then I'll literally take you that last mile, that's a lot more cost effective in terms of our public investment here. So all to the future, and happy to talk, you know, further about that in the Q&A. So our ridership since launch, I mean, it really took off like a hockey stick in 22. And this only goes to the end of 24, but that trend line generally continues through 2025. It is all about balance. So I would say that with microtransit, compared to what I know about fixed route transit, I think one of the biggest distinctions is, and Debiani could probably speak to this better than I can, there is such a thing as too many riders. Like if we have a big uptick in ridership, and then we put the vehicles out on the road to meet that, we're going to go over budget, and we're going to run out of money. So finding that balance between what you can effectively serve with the money that you have, and I have found over the last 3 years that it reaches an equilibrium point. And right now we're settling in at a steady 4,500 to 5,000 rides a month. Also, as time goes on, it gets more cost effective. More people learn about it, and more people are sharing rides. People get more comfortable sharing rides with each other in a 5-passenger minivan. A lot of times they work together at the same place. So in those early days, when you're just launching this and you're trying to get the riders, it's going to look to politicians like a massive waste of money. We have all these drivers going around and nobody's in it, But when you get past that startup period of the 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, and then people catch on to it, then it looks a lot better. And I've had elected officials of both sides of the aisle, but they do tend to be more on the Republican side, tell me, yeah, the empty bus thing is a huge issue for their constituents. And the fact that we're running 5-passenger minivans is a game changer, because the suburban constituents looking at me like, oh, cool, they're innovating and it's not a big empty bus, So there's I wish that wasn't the case. I wish we could tolerate quote unquote empty buses on a new bus route out to the suburbs until it catches on, and then people, really start filling those buses. But that's the, what we're, that's the paradigm that we're in. So where are riders going? You'll see here that FedEx is our largest destination by far. Why is that the case? It is that way because, back in the day, 50 years ago, there were huge manufacturers in the city of Milwaukee that hired thousands of people in one building. That doesn't exist anymore. And really the closest that you have to one location with thousands of people all showing up to work in one building at the same time is places like FedEx. And I think that's why you see a lot of economic development incentives for FedEx and Amazon, because they're good paying jobs that are just like in huge buildings. And for that reason, FedEx has just been a massive driver for us. But we also have a Randell here that's a printing company out in the Falls, locally owned, and half of our rides go to our top 5 destinations. And then there's a long tail of many, over 200 locations that have smaller numbers, but it all adds up in the aggregate to about 1,500 individual riders a year and about 30,000 rides. So as we look to the future here, the question that I'm asked all the time, and the thing that I think about, I want to say it's the first thing I think about in the morning when I wake up. But the first thing I think about when I come into the office and then leave the office, there you go. How are we going to keep this thing going, right? So I want to, and one reason we reached out to Devyani and COTA is because I think it's a great case study of how a region in the Midwest with regional transit authorities that has dedicated funding for transit, as COTA achieved the last election in 2024, these types of things then can be much more possible. But in our region, it's up to a plucky nonprofit to kind of bootstrap it. And we have tremendous buy-in from Waukesha County Department of Transportation. If any of you guys from Waukesha are on the line, I want to acknowledge that the folks that have really stuck, not just believed in it, but have really helped us financially with this are Waukesha County. Private philanthropy and rider affairs, but it's not through a lack of desire that Milwaukee County and the state of Wisconsin have been a bit more challenging. It's a money thing, right? And my hope is that with things like FlexRide as targeted, focused solutions for specific geographies and use cases, we can use that to change that conversation a bit with politicians so that it's less about that big decline in ridership and more about increases in ridership for things like microtransit, but as part of a vision for how we could serve the whole region, with fixed route, and things like microtransit here and there. But bottom line is, without that sustainable funding for transit, without that regional, infrastructure to do that, FlexRide will always be at risk because, let's face it, every nonprofit is at risk in 2025. We're just going to be straight with you.
So Dave, I'm
because
gonna
it's cheaper
jump
fund.
in, just watching time. I know this is
Yeah.
through the end, just so we have enough
Yeah.
time, Devyani, to showcase some of their lessons learned. So do you have another slide with is it just your contact?
No, I don't, but I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, all right. Awesome. Oh, see, that was perfect timing. All right. Now we're going to hear about somebody who's in a region that's been a little bit more aggressive and successful. So we're excited to hear your perspective.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dave, Carolyn, to invite me to this. I mean, it's a great discussion and hard work from people like Dave. That's where even we call ourselves successful through election cycle and we won funding, but it's the constant hard work about transit and how do we make this a viable public transit option or mobility option for people. And that's the discussion we are having even after a lot of different successful things. My name is Devyani Puranik. I am the Development Programs Director here at COTA. I am really excited to share our vision for the region and also talk a little bit about our similar offering microtransit system or service for our residents here in Columbus, Ohio. Let's see if it moves. Okay, there we go. A little bit about COTA. We are a regional transit authority. It's a little bit different than what Dave mentioned about Wisconsin area, Milwaukee area. We are a public agency funded through sales tax, but we are separate agency than our county transit. Our neighboring transit counties have their own regional transit services, but we are completely independent agency. We are about 562 square mile region that includes mainly Franklin County, Columbus metro area, plus 4 other neighboring counties, just a smaller region for the cities that we serve. We are governed by a 13-member board of trustees, and we get representatives from all of our partner communities. And we are more than a bus service provider. We are now a more mobility and even development agency for the region. For us, 2019 was the highest ridership year. We provided over 20 million, but through COVID, like Dave mentioned, the ridership declined, but we are steadily and every year over year climbing in terms of ridership. Last year, we provided about over 12 million rides. We also have ADA service mainstream, so that is also popular, but for COTA Plus, which is very similar to what Dave shared, it's our on-demand system. We provided over 180,000 rides last year. Just a quick planning. I know all of your planners here, so would love to share some of the planning work that happened. The planning actually started about 10 years back in 2014, when our local MPOs did a study about where the growth is happening. We are the only metro area in the region in Ohio that is growing and gaining population. We are ahead of Cleveland and Cincinnati, and we are expecting about 1 million new residents by 2050. We are already on very much following the graph and the trend. And also with that, then there are other issues like housing that comes into play. We are about 200,000 units short for housing for all the population that is coming in. And also the opportunity gaps, about 40,000 Franklin County households lack access to personal vehicle. That's a 0-car household. And it's a big deal. And even with 1-car household, it costs about $13,000 per year to own and maintain a car, which is a significant amount for people to spend just on personal vehicle transportation. And so The mobility needs or other alternative transportation needs are growing every year. And with the population, it's even more significant and critical to address for regional transit authority. So that's where the Linkus initiative was born, a plan for a more connected region. And our council president from City of Columbus, he describes this initiative as city's master plan for next 25 years. So the planning, like I said, began in 2014 when our local MPO started a study called Insight 2050 to really understand what would be the projected growth for population as well as jobs within the region. We want to make sure that it is very walkable and very focused growth. That's where NextGen, our COTA's own study that came in, and it looked at more corridor-specific studies and connections. And then followed by NextGen, we did Insight 2050 corridor concepts. That was done in 2019, where the recommendations were to focus all of the new development and growth, including jobs and employment along these corridors. And that vision was formalized in 2020 as Linkas. Obviously, it was not done only by COTA. It has to be in collaboration for any of these big initiatives, which also have some political background and promises and the expectations built into it. But that's where this collaboration and partnership really was helpful. So the partners within this initiative are obviously COTA, City of Columbus, Mid-Ohio Planning Commission, Franklin County, and Columbus Partnership, focusing on more employment arm for the city. So in 2024, as Dave mentioned, our voters approved a new 0.5% COTA sales tax, increasing our funding by almost by double. So the new sales tax increase began this year in April 2025, and this is the historic investment for the Central Ohio region. Cleveland and Cincinnati, we now match with them in terms of funding. We were almost half of the funding before that, even with the growth that we were seeing. So with the new sales tax, we are anticipating about $6.25 billion by 2050, and then other revenue sources, including debt services, which we were not issuing debt before, but those were also looked at, and the policy changed a couple years back for us to be able to do that. So our funding has increased, but then the costs have also increased, especially with unionized employees like operators and vehicle maintenance people, even though people feel that the funding has doubled, but the costs and expenses have increased quite a lot too. But with this funding, there is obviously more COTA, more sidewalks, more opportunity, because the sidewalks is something that people cared about who voted for us, who didn't use transit on a day-to-day basis, but all of these connections meant something to them. And so several people who are not transit users were really on board to be able to support and fund 500 plus miles of sidewalks, bikeways, and trails. So about $60 million annually of this new historic funding will be spent on providing these connections for first last mile transit. With the transit specifically, with our fixed route system, we are increasing about 14 or improving 14 new routes. Improve routes, increase frequency, maybe 24-hour service. But the big piece of that, as Dave mentioned, a lot of our suburban partners care a lot about this COTA Plus microtransit service. So 8 new COTA Plus zones. And we are also working on 5 rapid transit corridors, meaning bus rapid transit as of now for the 3 corridors, and 2 corridors are coming. So between all of that, about 45% new transit specific improvement is what COTA is working on together. Just a quick animation on what's coming. Obviously, all of the fixed route service, the 3 main corridors that are underway for bus rapid transit. Lot of corridors are under study with our partners. And then finally, a few more corridors that we have to look at as in like what type of solution we can propose for these corridors. Obviously, rail comes up all the time, but still in Central Ohio, it is a very hard conversation politically and financially and just density and land use related. I really like to share this picture. I think it's a quite powerful picture. It's, 200 people in cars as opposed to 200 people in 3 buses, right? And as planners, we are always trying to work toward developing streetscape and really providing that vibrant environment for our constituents. And just with cars, just people sitting, bikes, and the buses, I think visually it shows you what transit does to our cities as well. But this cannot be done, like Daya said, it's land use is the big portion or big component of any of this big change. And so City of Columbus in partnership is improving their zoning code. It's complete redo of their zoning code in 70 years. Their initiative is Zone In, and they are proposing majority of high density mixed use development near frequent transit. And that's the partnership that will make these kind of initiatives more successful. Almost all of our suburban partners are working toward complete streets. Workforce access is a big deal, especially when Intel announced their location here in Columbus. Workforce became a really serious conversation. And that actually helped us initiate a lot of new projects. And integrated planning is the holistic mobility system. It's not just the bus routes, it's bus routes with microtransit, with BRT, with some of the new transit supportive infrastructure, meaning sidewalks, shared use paths, and how do we really create our city as very mobility friendly and economic development friendly environment. In terms of land use and microtransit integration, sorry, this picture is a little bit blurry, but this is the Zone In. And as you can see, a lot of the new phase 1 areas are along the corridors where COTA is working toward high capacity transit. And phase 2 will look at additional neighborhoods, which will cover more than 60% of the city to allow that mixed use multifamily development by right and reduce parking standards as well. We also always watch our peer cities and peer transit agencies to see what was the success of this kind of investment. And one of the big examples that we always watch is the Twin Cities. They had $16 billion in new development after BRT came in. 37% of all regional development is only on 3% of their land and 52,000 new housing units. So clearly a success of investing in transit. Close to home is Cleveland. We are always looking what they are doing with their health line. It connects to Case Western University to Cleveland Clinic. And it's about $4.5 million or mile line, $200 million in cost, but $9.5 billion in economic development. And clearly another success story in the region. Working toward that, then I also wanted to share a little bit about transit supportive infrastructure. It's also part of Linkas, and like I said, it will help us connect neighborhoods to the transit lines, not just microtransit, but all of our fixed routes. And also new services like mobility hubs, right? So making it as easy and convenient for people to hop from one mode to another mode for that complete seamless trip experience. We are working with our MPO to create the CIP or Capital Improvement Program. This is what it looks like for 2026. This year's investment is about $43 million, but over time it will average out to $60 million. And for 2026, we have 100 plus miles and improvements in multi-jurisdictional effort, very collaborative project development for all of these transit supportive infrastructure projects. And then bringing it back to COTA Plus, our on-demand microtransit program. It's also one of the mobility solutions. It's a permanent program that our agency now looks at. Quick background on that, COTA did first last mile study in 2019. And as a result, in 2019, one of our suburban partners, Grove City, they had really less service hours or the fixed route service available in their area, stepped up to partner with us, financially committed to launch a zone. And so the first zone was launched in 2019. We use the same technology partner VIA, but we operate our own service with our own operators and vehicles. Following that, even through COVID, we launched another zone, Westerville zone. It's another suburban zone. And then we also launched our Southside zone. That zone is operated 100% by COTA. We do not have partnership there, but it's our highest ridership zone. In April 2022, we hit 100,000 rides. By September 2024, we hit 500,000 rides, and it's continuously growing over time, really proving the demand for transit services. So these are our three zones. This is the Columbus region. The first zone is Grove City. The second was Westerville, and third is Southside Columbus. It's a lot of disadvantaged neighborhoods and connecting to Nationwide Children's Hospital. So it really serves that workforce commuting service for people in Southside. Over time, our ridership in all of our three zones have grown significantly. Southside zone was about 143,000 last year. The ridership mainly comes from students, workforce, and seniors within the zone. But like Dave said, too much ridership is also not good for this kind of premium service, and it's already we are really thinking through what that means and what levers we need to push and pull to really adjust the efficiency for that zone, because this is a premium service, it's not cheap, but how do we really balance it? I already mentioned suburban style 2 zones and urban style zone. We are already seeing like 8 rides at peak time per hour, which is at the highest level of what industry recommends, so 4 to 8 rides per hour. Again, Southside zone is very, very popular with all of these virtual stops and destinations. We average at 4.5 rides per hour, which is quite a lot. And then we also have about 6,000 unique riders. In terms of what's coming, we have several other zones already designed. But that being said, we wanted community to be part of our decision-making process. So we just presented the plan to our board. We are going to invite communities to share their interest and also commit financially in this partnership, where COTA will take 90% of the cost to run this zone, but then we are asking communities to take care of 10% of the cost, which will still be significant and show up as partners for us, as opposed to us just launching new zone. So there are several successes and challenges. The success is it works for everyone. More riders, better service, and it's also convenient for people who are kind of not sure about the big buses and public transit system. But it comes with challenges. It is a premium system. Suburban stakeholders have unique needs, so there is no one solution fits all type situation, and it's also expensive service. So just in summary, I know we are coming up to 5 minutes or 6 minutes. None of this is possible without policy innovation. It has to happen at the top level, at political level, with elected officials, but at the same time, it's also grassroots initiative, and somewhere both of those sides, like both ends come and meet. That's the only way to have this kind of change in the region. Land use and microtransit, right? Land use is a big component of anything that we do in the region, and it has to come together to really serve our community for what they need. And also collaboration. Nothing of this can happen without partnership. So collaboration is the key with all of our partners in the region. So with that, that's my last slide. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you both. It's been really a great local perspective for Milwaukee, but also the broader perspective because you have such a broad, I think, array of programming that you're reaching. And also you have a community that is embracing it both politically probably and as riders. I think we probably have time for one or two questions. I guess one is specifically about approaching employers because I know Dave is saying in the chat that they have approached employers to contribute. Do you have any strategies, Devyani? Do you have destinations or employers who are contributing? And do you have suggestions?
Yes, yeah, specifically for microtransit program, we do have major employers within the zone. In fact, the hospital system in Grove City was one of the main reasons where the zone was launched. So the hospital system, they purchase bulk. I mean, there is an employee pass program that they use. So there is always that employer uh, contribution to the program. And they were the main reason, again, the driving force behind launching this program. The other two zones also have major employers, and they also contribute to their employees for employee benefits. One thing I didn't mention is our county jail. They are we serve the jail through Southside Zone as well, and they also contributed because they needed rides for people who were leaving the jail system to get into wherever they wanted to go. So the jail also contributes quite a lot in the program. And also the grants. We always are seeking
Yes,
grants.
grants, yeah, that's helpful. So before I do sort of a final question, Natalie, who's assisting from our department, will put a survey link in the chat. We're always looking for your ideas, not just your perspective on today's speakers, but new ideas so that we can bring in different speakers next spring and next year. So I think sort of one final question is maybe for both of you, it's a challenging one from James, right? How are you adapting and planning ahead for future efforts? You already have several future lines in the Columbus area, but given the current federal funding policy environment, I guess, how are you both adapting to that? Nobody wants to go first on this one, right?
Wow, James, that's the hard ball. You know, really good glass of Japanese whiskey, you know, 15-year Yamazaki. No, that's more coping. That's not strategy. I would say that keeping all the options open. I mean, I think one of the strengths that FlexRide has is that we're a transit service in a workforce development wrapper. Our service, because of how we were started through workforce development dollars, allowed us relationships and conversations outside of that kind of transportation transit box. And that's opened doors for us from a funding perspective. And you know, there's a lot of people, both private and public sources of money that care about reducing barriers to employment. And most of what's funded through that helps 20 or 30 people get their driver's license recovered, or 40 or 50 people get to a distant job location on a van shuttle. We serve 1,500 per year. So that's a big strength for us. So again, it's creativity and figuring out how to, you know, talk about a transit program in a way that drives workforce development outcomes. And that's, you know, through just the data that we collect and the stories that we tell. But that's a great question.
Yeah, I would say ditto. Creativity, a lot of it is figuring out the system and coming up with creative solutions. I would say we were lucky in a sense that the elections happened before a lot of things changed. And we do have the dedicated revenue stream through sales tax. So that's definitely a good thing. But our funding for BRT projects is still a little bit shaky. We are working with Federal Transit Administration, about 150 million of $400 million would be the grant to Federal Transit Administration. As of now, it's going forward, but that's always something that we are watching very, very closely.
All right, thank you both for spending some time with us and sharing your experience and your expertise. I think it's inspiring for those who are wanting to expand some of their regional transit options. Reminder that our next ICL is October 8th. It'll be placemaking in action about the vibrant communities. And have a good rest of the week. We'll see you at the next ICL. Thank you.